Christianity is a trend that has been taking over the globe, is what you would probably say if you were alive 2,000 years ago. But me, being from a pretty non-religious family, I don't really know anything about it. I know there was a guy called Jesus, there was a guy called Judas. Judas was kind of a dick, and there's a whole lot of fans now that really like it. So today, we're gonna learn a little bit about Christianity by watching the weirdest Bible stories. Let's go, baby! What's it all about?
Half human, half angels. The Nephilim have been one of the oldest mysteries of the Bible, with them first being mentioned in the book of Genesis. Typically, entire segments of the Bible, which seem to make no sense to a modern reader, make a lot more sense when read in the ancient Greek, Hebrew, or Aramaic, the three languages the various books of the Bible were written in.
Translation errors. That's always an issue. I feel like translation errors are the cause of just a lot of fighting in just various different parts of any kind of religion. You're like, no, it means this. No, it means this. No, it means this. Everyone just has like slight variations on what it's supposed to mean. But then you have like people who are like very fervent about what thing is supposed to be perfect and right. Also, biblically accurate angels are the craziest thing I've ever seen in my life. I always bring up this picture. I don't know how accurate this is, but apparently in the Bible, which I've never read, sorry, so I might be wrong. But apparently they're described as like winged creatures with like a ton of eyes that are like white and stuff like that. And they look kind of like this, which is insane and also really cool, to be honest.
In the case of the Nephilim, though, the ancient languages that first mention these beings of great power offer no clues. As to this day, nobody is quite sure what the word used to describe the Nephilim really meant, other than to fall. The Nephilim are first described in Genesis chapter 6, verses 1 through 6, which takes place after Adam and Eve get an eviction notice from the Garden of Eden for unlawful fruit eating, and after Cain kills.
So just imagine them waking up one day and they have like a letter in the mailbox, which is just like a sheep that's been repurposed or something like that. And it's like, from God, please leave the Garden of Eden. Thank you. Lots of love, but not really. We're mad at you right now.
Abel out of a fit of jealousy. By now, the earth has been populated by humans, and a mysterious group called the Sons of God took notice of the beauty of human women, taking them as wives and interbreeding with them. Their offspring.
Really? They just like, they're just like, damn. Shit, those humans? Kind of hot.
Would result in the Nephilim, who were described as mighty men of renown, indicating that whatever they were, a significant number of them must have risen to prominence as great leaders. Shortly after, though, God judges the world evil and decides to hit the reset button with the aid of Noah, who would ensure not all mankind was wiped out.
Damn, so they just got like wiped out? That's kind of like a cheat code, though. If your dad is a literal angel from heaven, they talk about privilege. That is the ultimate privilege. Never mind being like born a billionaire in America or something like that. Dude, your dad's an angel. That's it. That's GG's. You just win. Congratulations.
Flood and Russell Crowe film later, and humanity would start over again. Eventually, the ancient Jews would be enslaved by the Egyptians and earn their freedom from a very hard-headed pharaoh with the aid of God, fleeing for a promised land that God had set aside for them. As they neared the border, though, Moses dispatched some spies to scope out the land, and those spies returned telling of the great people who inhabited the land, once more mentioning the Nephilim. Biblical scholars continue to argue about what exactly the Nephilim were, with many believing that they were simply the descendants of one of Cain's children. However, if one is to take the Bible literally, then
taking the Bible literally,
all of these descendants were wiped out in the flood, and yet the Nephilim once more appear in the Promised Land. If all humans save Noah's family were wiped out in the flood, then
Noah was one of them, which would actually make sense because he's like a being of great worth. I feel like God in this situation would be more inclined to not rescue and save specifically the one that fucked the angels kid, because I don't know, that seems like it's not really proper humanity. That's You sure you want to say those?
Or one of his family members was a Nephilim themselves. Or these were truly the children of fallen angels and mortal women, the angels having avoided the destruction of the flood. As most Christians don't take the Bible literally.
Bro, they just avoid the destruction by the flood because angels, they just flew over it, so they didn't drown because they can just fly.
Many consider the Nephilim to simply be prominent and powerful figures in history, given nearly mystical attributes of greatness by their contemporaries. Make fun of a prophet, get eaten by bears. Elisha was one of
okay.
the most important prophets of the Old Testament, succeeding his mentor Elijah, whom he got to watch get spirited away to heaven right before his eyes. That was probably
That's kind of sick, though, to be honest. Someone just like rises up and the clouds part and there's a great light. He's like, I'm going to heaven to go and hang out with God. We're going to play chess or something.
Encouraging sight for the young prophet, because at the time, Israel was a land of paganism and debauchery. God
Oh man, but paganism is like kind of cool though. I mean, you gotta admit, like the sacrifice stuff, not a fan of that. But like they have a lot of gods. Thor's cool. I think we can all agree. Isn't Thor cool?
God's people had turned their back on the God of their ancestors and taken up the worship of the pagan gods of the people who lived around them. And to make matters worse, Israel's ancient political leaders often took a dim view on Elisha or Elijah's prophetic activity. Shortly after Elisha took on his mentor's job, he headed for the city of Bethel. As he approached the city, a bunch of youths came out of the city
Bethel?
and made fun
Just
of
need a
Elisha
little
and
ham
his
afterwards.
apparently bald head. Elisha
What?
turned around and cursed them, and immediately God sent 2 female bears to eat the impudent children.
What? God, man. Dude, you can't kill kids because they what? Come on, guys.
As people who have often been around misbehaving, obnoxious children, we gotta say that it's hard for us to be mad about this particular Bible story. Then he went up from there to Bethel, and as he was going up the road, some youths came from the city and mocked him, and said to him, "Go up, you bald head, go up, you bald head." So he turned around and looked at them, and pronounced a curse on them in the name of the Lord. And
What?
2 female bears came out of the woods and mauled 42 of the youths.
Oh my God, that is somewhat of an maybe we shouldn't have 42? That's a lot. That's a lot of kids to get eaten by bears. I don't know. Maybe there was a more diplomatic solution. We could have put them in juvie for a bit. We maybe shouldn't throw bears at all of our problems. I think that's a bit of an issue that we're having here.
What really happened there? Did God really murder a bunch of kids via bear?
Surely not,
quite.
right?
In
Okay,
ancient
okay,
Hebrew,
sweet.
the word for youths, as used in the scripture, was translated as young men in a pretty broad sense. It was used
like
for
20,
Joseph
right?
in Genesis when he was a whopping 39 years old, and for
Wow.
Absalom as an adult of an unknown age, as well as Solomon at age 20. From 39 to 20 years. That's quite a broad range for this.
So we're talking like
particular
grown
adjective.
men, right?
Now, Elisha had just recently returned from watching his mentor Elijah get beamed up to heaven, Star Trek style. And though Elisha was the only witness to it happening,
But it definitely happened. Like, bro, believe me, source me.
Elijah was a well-known prophet and had told many people that he was soon to be beamed up. Thus,
I'm gonna
when
get
Elisha
beamed up by
approached
Scotty any
Bethel,
day now.
a city extremely hostile to his religious views, it wouldn't have been uncommon knowledge that Elijah had been claiming that he would be hoovered up into heaven. Lastly, we get to Elisha's bald head. As
Hey,
Elisha lived 50 years
baldness
after
is cool,
beginning
okay?
his ministry, he was clearly not an old man at the time. His baldness was likely a result of bad genetics. With some
That's
proper perspective,
rough.
we get an entirely different interpretation of what actually happened in this weird biblical tale. Elisha, who was suffering from male pattern baldness at a young age, was on his way to preach in a city that was a stronghold for pagan worship. When men who could have been as old as 39 years old saw him coming, they rushed out to intercept him, jeering and taunting him and his faith. They made fun
Sure.
of both his mentor and his close friend Elijah, telling him, "Go up, go up."
Oh, okay. Well, I mean, that's a bit mean. Like, the dude's dead. Probably. He's most likely dead. You can't just be like, oh, I hope the same thing happens to you. That's kind of
As in
mean,
go
right?
up to the sky and to heaven, as Elijah had claimed he would do, and Elisha himself had told the people he had seen happen. Lastly, they called him a bald head because, well, people are all kinds of dicks no matter the century they live in.
Don't think
God
that
then
deserves death
sends
by
bears
bear.
to maul the group surrounding Elisha. But did God really kill a bunch of Iron Age hecklers? Well, again, not quite. The scripture states
okay.
that 42 of them were attacked by bears, indicating that this
Okay.
was a rather large crowd. And if only 42 were actually mauled, then the real crowd was likely much bigger. Now we get a very different and very scary picture for Elisha, traveling alone and suddenly mobbed by a crowd taunting him. What's also important is that the verse doesn't actually state that the bears killed anyone, simply that they were mauled. And
right.
the ancient Hebrew word indicates far less serious injuries than we might associate with the term today. So, with some perspective, we see a different story. Elisha, traveling alone, was mobbed by villagers, and God rescued him by sending the bears to scare and threaten them.
Okay, that seems like a more God thing to do. All right, that's a bear story. Okay,
Still,
this
a
is
bit of
this
a
is
weird
getting
story,
better.
though.
It's a little
God
weird. But you know what? If I was gonna have any bodyguards and I was getting protected by the big man upstairs, I'd ask for some bears, to be
Ehud the
fair.
Assassin. It's a tale as old as, well, the Bible. Israel receives the blessings of God, and inevitably, as the years go by and the people enjoy the good life, they forget about God and start acting up.
Oh, damn, they're gonna kiss each other on the lips? Ah, shit, dude.
Then a
Oh,
foreign
no.
invader occupies the land until ancient Jews turn back to God, only for them to forget about God and get invaded again.
Like, man, every time we forget about something, we get invaded. Well, what are we forgetting about? I don't know, I forgot. Uh-oh, here they come over the hill
Modern
again.
biblical scholars point to the ancient Jews' constant rebellion as the natural state of man, and God's equally constant willingness to forgive them and restore their freedom as his natural state of love and forgiveness. Think what you will of the Bible. This is an eerily accurate representation of life for anyone who has kids. During one of those occupations brought on by Israel turning away from God, the Jews are occupied by the king of Moab, a neighboring country. Rather than completely conquering the land, though, Eglon, king of Moab, instead forced Israel to pay annual tribute in the form of money and other valuables.
As was common at the time.
Powers, as it was far simpler and less expensive to simply bully your neighbors into becoming vassals than to militarily conquer them completely.
Yeah, because if you conquer them, you have to like bring an army, and it's a whole deal. You have to, have to supply the army. You have to take over the places. You have to execute the leaders and install your own puppet state. Like, oh man, it's so complex and annoying. I might as well just vassalize them.
After 18 years of oppression by the Moabites, God chose Ehud to once more set his people free. Thus, Ehud decided to kick off his rebellion by cutting the head directly off the snake. Now, Ehud made himself a dagger
Pretty good way to start.
under his clothes on his right thigh. So he brought the tribute to Eglon, king of Moab. Now,
he's a
Eglon
little snaky
was
assassin.
a very fat man.
He's a big boy.
When he had finished presenting the tribute, he sent away the people who had carried the tribute. But he himself turned back from the stone images that were at Gilgal and said, "I have a secret message for you, O king."
The message is me stabbing you several times in the stomach, in your big fat stomach.
Said, "Keep silence." And all who attended him went out from him, and Ehud came to him. Then Ehud said, "I have a message from God for you." So he arose from his seat. Then Ehud reached with his left hand, took the dagger from his right thigh, and thrust it into his belly.
That's his right hand though. He's holding it in his right hand, like right now. That's not his left hand. Why would
the hilt went in after the blade, and the fat closed over the blade, for he did not draw the dagger out of his belly, and his entrails came out. Now in this episode, we've talked about how important it is to frame weird Bible stories in the original language used. But this story is pretty much exactly what it sounds like, and just as badass. Ehud snuck a dagger about a foot long under his tunic like some ancient assassin.
Yeah, he clapped
told the Moabite king that he had a secret message for him. King Eglon, who was extremely obese, sent away his attendants, and in a move that was likely meant to humiliate Ehud, he gave the Jewish assassin a private audience right outside of his toilet. Yeah, you heard that right. Eglon took an audience with Ehud to hear his message in what the Bible very politely describes as his cool private chamber. Ehud, undeterred, get it, then delivered the most badass line in literature until Liam Neeson's speech to his daughter's kidnappers in Taken's film script. The assassin whips out his secret dagger and says, "I have a message from God for you," then stabs the startled king so deep in his fat gut that he can't pull the blade free.
He must have been a big boy.
As far as messages go, that one was definitely to the point. Okay, we'll stop.
He's literally like a biblical God-blessed assassin. That's kind of sick,
After
not gonna lie.
God's stabagram, Ehud flees from the palace, and King Eglon's servants, who still believe he's on the toilet, are so ashamed to interrupt him that they let him sit there for a few hours.
Oh, dude, is this where the Game of Thrones got it from? I'm getting like Red Wedding vibes from this, and also when, spoiler alert, a certain person dies in that position.
Finally, one of them figures
I'm getting some Game of Thrones vibes.
Up and
I think that maybe God stole from Game of Thrones, so that's kind of cringe of you, God, to do that. The Bible kind of stealing some stuff. That's kind of cringe.
Embarrassment to find his dear king stabbed to death on the John. Sort of like a more violent version of an ancient Elvis. After assassinating the oppressive king, Ehud goes on to lead Israel to victory against an army of 10,000 Moabites, securing peace for
good job, man.
Years.
Dude,
this guy's got 80-year peace.
This guy's got it going on.
You guessed it, the people fell away from God and once more get invaded. Some
Come
people
on,
believe
man.
the Bible is a literal account of history, and those people really shouldn't, because the earth is definitely older than 7,000 years. And no, dinosaur bones aren't a trick by Satan to confuse you. Most Christians simply believe that the Bible is instead divinely—
They're a trick by Satan. Like, Satan has enough power to distribute these objects everywhere, all over the world. They're incredibly complex, that make up actual living creatures that could have existed, but that's all he does. He just puts the bones in the ground. Like, he doesn't make actual dinosaurs. He just puts them in the ground. He's like, they're going to be so confused.
Inspired, and some elements are historically accurate, while others are oral tradition of the ancient believers who crafted the various books of this holy text.
The Bible is kind of crazy. I feel like that's mostly Old Testament stuff, because the Old Testament did go a little bit wacky sometimes, but that was some cool stuff. I enjoyed that. That was some fun stories. If you enjoyed it, make sure you subscribe to the channel. We do reactions here every single day, and also make sure that you subscribe to my main channel, because that's where we do these streams and you can be in these videos every single time. See you later. Bye. See you. Bye. Bye.